Hello, and welcome to Conversations Worth Your While, a show in which I chat with authentic, heart centered experts about interesting topics to spark, inspire, and motivate both personal and professional change. And today we're talking about how to relieve holiday stress. This conversation is worth your while because if you walk into any store right now, you will see that the holiday season is upon us. And during the holiday season, we have less time, more responsibilities, and higher expectations. So we want to avoid overspending, overextending ourselves, and we want to stop dreading the holidays and instead embrace the holiday season and mindfully enjoy all that it brings. So we're going to show you how to do that today. I am Linda Bucher. I am a speaker and a master certified life coach. And after living the life of a chameleon for 45 years and feeling like a victim, I discovered who I am and I discovered my worth. Then I connected my passion and my purpose, and I reinvented my life to align with my true self. As a result, I've become way more happier, more confident, more fulfilled. But most importantly, this transformation has resulted in me unleashing my gifts to the world. And my mission is to help you do the same in your life because you have an incredible worth and you have important gifts to give to the world. You have a splash to make, and you can't do that until you know your worth, get clear on your purpose, align your energy and direction, and free yourself from all those obstacles that want to hold you back. So let's chat about how to get you out of your own way, know your worth, and get back into alignment. You can schedule a free 20-minute clarity session with me at makeasplash.youcanbook.me. So let's move on with the show. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Laura Lonie. She's a CPA and a financial coach who is making positive ripples in a very unique way. Laura helps people turn their financial stress into financial strength. Hi, Laura. Thank you for being with us today.
Hi, Linda. Thank you for having me.
It's awesome that you're here. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about what you do, who you serve, and basically how you are making positive ripples in the world?
Well, I'm a financial coach, and for people who don't know what that is, I basically get into the everyday finances with people, into the weeds with them. And the people I serve are typically professionals who have spent a lot of time on their career, and as a result, they've neglected their finances, or they're people that simply just never were interested in finances. Now they're getting a little older and they're thinking, wow, I have to start saving for retirement. So I help them implement ways to allocate their money differently and look at things differently. And the effects on people, the ripple splash that I'm making, is that it brings them financial clarity. A lot of people are actually afraid to look at their finances. They're afraid to move forward. And particularly high-powered career people are leery to disclose that they may not understand some financial terms. So I offer a safe, confidential space to help them move forward financially.
Oh, well, that's a very beautiful and very necessary thing. A lot of times when people avoid their financial picture, it's because it's triggering them that they feel less than smart, right? And then they feel ashamed that either they don't know something or they got themselves into a pickle. So it's a really important service that you offer, and that's a beautiful thing. And in the show notes, I'll definitely put how our audience can get a hold of you if they're experiencing anything like that. Okay, so today, though, you and I are talking about how to relieve holiday stress. Okay, so holiday stress is upon us, and we're going to today talk about 4 overarching areas that we experience stress in. So let's just talk about the stressors. Well, I'm going to let you go first, but let's start with time, this whole time crunch.
Oh, it's incredible. Like the whole time period, as you mentioned already, that there's stuff from Christmas in the store. So in the back of people's minds, they're already starting to think, oh no, the holidays are coming. And here we go again. It's the same thing. I don't want to deal with it. And then, once you hit Thanksgiving, then oh boy, Christmas coming. And the time period between Thanksgiving and Christmas, well, actually New Year's, can be incredible for people. And there's so many things, so many commitments. It could be from hosting Thanksgiving to all the holiday parties, the charity parties, the kids' pageants, you name it. And, then Christmas and getting, you might have to fly to your relatives. They're coming to stay with you. So everything's disrupted. And yeah, it's such a crazy time.
Yes, it's a real crazy time. And I like that you bring up, flying or hosting. So I have 3 kids and 2 of them have significant others, and they're all coming in for a week or week and a half at Thanksgiving time. I know because they don't live here that I want to spend all that time with them. So basically my holiday season is getting my shopping, baking, cooking, hosting, whatever, all that other is getting truncated because that 10 days I'm devoting to being available for my children. So the hostings, I'm taking myself out of the game. So that makes everything crunch even more. And then, like in business, being an entrepreneur, what can I do to finish strong in this year? Right. So I've got that crunch. I've got to do things that I'm choosing to do things that will finish this year strong on a really positive note, that will serve my clients on a really positive note. So there's more I'm adding to my own plate that way. And then of course, like you were mentioning, if you have smaller children, there's, they're going, they got the Boy Scouts got their holiday party, and the cross country running club have their holiday thing. And then there's all the Christmas stuff they do at the clubs or the holiday parties. At schools, like the open houses, the holiday fairs, bazaars, things like that. Sometimes churches, have things going on there. There's just more happy hours after work, holiday happy hour, holiday luncheons. My dad always takes my sisters and I out for a holiday lunch. We do it every year. He's 81 years old. We're like, let's do it for as long as, he'll be doing it. And we really look forward to it. And he's trying to schedule that. And that's a really hard thing. And there's just 3 daughters. So we're trying to do so much. It's such a crunch. And even though it seems on the outset that these are all enjoyable things, spending time with your family, going out, doing all these things, watching your children light up at these holiday bazaars and things like that. There's a huge stress component where we're like, and I'm going to do all that, or I've got to do all that. And, I have to shop, I have to bake, I have to host, I have to, we're just throwing all this stuff on us. It's a really difficult time.
And everything else, like the children have to have the right outfits for the play, and they tend to tell you at the last minute, I need, a massive amount of something by tomorrow, and it's ready late, and and then expectations.
Right.
You can't make it to every single party. You can't make it to every event.
Right.
So somebody's going to be disappointed.
Yes. Well, thank you for bringing that up, because that is the second area of our 4 areas we're talking about today. Expectations around the holidays. There's even more expectations than we feel we have to hold ourselves to during the rest of the year. We've got our friends, we've got our families, we've got our kids. Even the expectations, I remember when the kids were little, they didn't need a lot of stuff. I'd give them 9 gifts, right? Each, but little things to open or whatever. Now that they're adults, I'm like, I can't get them 9 things each because everything they want is very expensive. But I still have that old expectation of there's not enough. They're not enough for them, because when I was a kid, we got 2 gifts. And so I don't know why my mental state decided my kids needed 9. What's wrong with 2? But now I've set the expectations for 9. So it's my own internal expectation. So we have those, as well as having the expectations of people around us that we're going to, do all this stuff. So expectations are huge.
Yes, and there's also a lot of families. Families are much more complicated today than they used to be. So that lends more itself to where I'm expected to be here, I'm expected to be there. So it ties the time and expectations together. In the gifts, like you said, at work, there can be the collection for this, the collection for that. And you don't seem to be, you want to be mean spirited, but after a certain amount of time, you're like, how many collections? And then you go shopping and they're telling you to round up $1 and you go in to get a coffee that you're get the cup to go self-serve yourself and they're asking for tips. So you have all those expectations on top of your job may be demanding a lot of the fourth quarter. Like you said, you may have revenue goals you have to meet. So you've got it coming, the expectations coming from you in all directions.
Yeah.
And then your own expectations. Like you may be thinking somebody's going to help you out, and then you find out that that's not actually going to happen. They're just going to show up and let you do everything. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. And a lot of those expectations, those internal expectations, they're rooted much more deeply for us. They're rooted in a lot of fears and insecurities. And when we are overwhelmed, that's when we expect other people to help, because we're in a place of lack, right? We're in a place of need. We're not getting what we need. And it's a very difficult thing because we don't like when other people put expectations on us as well. So it's a tough time internally too, because these expectations we're putting on ourselves, we have to do it perfectly. We have to get Christmas cards out. Everyone else is sending me Christmas cards. Oh, we have to have a nice family photo for our Christmas cards. There's just a lot of expectations coming from outside and from within that are difficult. And we're going to talk about that today in a little bit. In just a few minutes, we're going to revisit these from a more positive side. But right now, you and I are talking about the stressors. And so you already have segued beautifully into the next thing, which is the money, the stress of money, these phantom costs. You were talking about the roundup at the store, right? Tipping your hairdresser, buying a bottle of wine every time you're invited to go somewhere, or some other type of a hostess gift. The Secret Santa that's happening at work, or the chipping in. There's a lot of phantom costs, as well as the expectations that overlap with money, to have to spend a certain amount on people.
yes. And if you have a family that's always given extravagant gifts and perhaps your financial situation has changed and you don't want to share this with everybody or even your friends, every year you go to this holiday dinner at an expensive restaurant, and now what do you do? I mean, how do you deal with that? People are expecting that of you. And then, like you said, the expectations of yourself, like a lot of people expect, they can do like a Martha Stewart, entertaining and have their house, look like, it's an Architectural Digest or something. It's just not realistic. And it's very hard because we have our internal expectations. We have the expectations of if we live with family members, our partners, our children. And you touched on like your memories too as a child, what that brings up. So perhaps if you felt that you didn't get very much or you got too much, it can make you go in the other direction.
Yeah. 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 And it can make you go in that direction when you actually can't afford it. So we end up spending money that we don't have to try to manage other people's views of us, which is impossible. You cannot manage what other people think of you. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But we do a lot of what we do, a lot of that saying yes when we really mean no, spending more when we really would like to spend yes, or spend less, because we are trying to avoid judgment and criticism and shame. And those are really negative emotions. They can really make the holiday season feel yucky and make us really dread this season.
Oh, so many people. I read somewhere that like 2 out of 5 people would rather go to the DMV than deal with holiday stress.
I'd rather stand in that
And
long line.
I could see why, because like, how do you say to somebody that, say it's a parent or a friend or a sibling, you know that person is going to judge you
Mhm.
for not, being the one that says, okay, I want to switch it up this year.
Yes.
I don't want to, exchange $100 gifts or, whatever the expectation is. It's very, very hard. And the big thing I think is being how you view it yourself and how much you prepare yourself for the expectations on yourself and of others. So communication with yourself and with others is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We could talk a little bit about that in just a minute about how to relieve this, because that's what we're talking about today. So, but today right now we're just diving into all these stressors, and the fourth and last stressor we're going to talk about today is exhaustion. So all of these lead to exhaustion when the money stress, the expectation stress, the time crunch, it all leads to exhaustion, and exhaustion is stressful all in itself. And we're exhausted through the season and then into January, right? We're basically all used up. We're all used up by these relatives. We're all used up maybe because we're traveling. Even on Christmas, there were many, many years, like decades, where I was going 4 places in one day just to meet the expectations. You have to come here, you have to eat, you have to come here, you have to eat, you have to come here. I'm eating like 4 dinners just because I'm trying to make everybody happy and meet all those expectations. It's exhausting. We're all used up. We're used up by the stress and the pressure of how much did I spend? Did I get enough? Or are these gifts even? Did I get this is much for this kid and that much for that kid? And there's so much going on in our heads. We are just completely exhausted. Exhaustion is a giant stressor, and it affects us not just mentally but physically. And it really taints the whole season because we're exhausted through the whole thing, right?
Oh, that's true. I mean, if you're going like back to back holiday, professional dinners or, club dinners, and, the next day you're like, wow, because you're not used to doing this. And then you're not eating the same food that you eat, so you're not sleeping as well. And it gets to be too much. And it also increases the likelihood you're going to get sick because you're wearing yourself down, literally. And again, that can be travel included. Travel can be very exhausting, and you don't have, in between all these events, you don't have any time to recoup. I mean, you've got to get on to the next, you have to work the next day. You have to do this. The world doesn't end just because you have to go to a lot of parties. And it sounds so glamorous, you're going to a lot of parties, but in reality it's like, I need a nap, I need some rest.
True, truly. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now let's move on to the second part where we're going to talk about, basically, I'm going to give it a title because we have a title actually. So Laura and I are going to actually, when we were designing what we wanted to talk about today, we decided we're going to share some strategies about how to develop holiday resiliency, how to combat all these stressors. And we're going to share in like 5 minutes, we're going to share with you what they are. But then we said, let's take people through this. So we're also going to do a free online workshop about how to develop holiday resiliency. And that's going to be on October 18th, 2023 at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll make sure we put the link to that in the show notes. I think the link is going to be, it's a bit.ly link, so bit.ly/develop holiday resiliency. That's all you got to type in and you will get there. But we're going to share with you in 5 minutes what these strategies are. And then in that workshop, we'll take an hour to actually kind of, help you understand them at a deeper level so that you can actually employ them. And this will be again in mid-October. So right at the beginning of this big giant season where you're going to be like, experiencing all these stresses, we're going to give you these strategies and help you to implement them. Okay, so we're going to go visit these 4 areas and that we have been talking about that are big stressors. So Laura, let's you and I start with the time management. So we want to really help people to reduce stress through time management. And so one of the, a big way to do that is to be able to manage their time, right? So they're not buying these last minute gifts. So they want to be able to manage their time. I'm going to let you, speak to this a little bit, and then I'll come back and put my 2 cents in.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, how many of us have been at CVS? I think that might be one of the few stores open on Christmas Day where you're running in to buy batteries for that gift you bought and you didn't realize that it needed batteries, and you might be, silently swearing to yourself on a day that's supposed to be, a spiritual day and a day of happiness. And the time, when you are in such a crunch with time, you tend to make poor decisions. So by managing your time ahead of time, looking at your commitments and deciding like what can stay, what can go, you can free yourself up to not be the one, not to be, have your goal, not to be that person in CVS on Christmas who's giving the person in front of them a dirty look.
Right. So in the workshop, we are going to help people to create a comprehensive time management plan that they can use for the entire holiday season. But what else that comes like from my side from being a master certified life coach is the reason that we're not managing our time well, that we feel unable to, those internal expectations, that fear of judgment and criticism and shame. That's the part where I'm going to be helping in this workshop to help alleviate that. Because if you didn't have those inside pressures that are coming from how you believe people are going to outside perceive you, then it's easier to manage your time. So time management doesn't just making a calendar isn't going to be enough. You need to give yourself permission to not put everything on this calendar, to say no. And that has to come from this internal permission, has to come from, realigning what you're saying yes to who you are and how to do that. So that's going to be part of that time management piece, which is huge, really huge. Let's move on to number 2. The next thing that we're going to talk about, another strategy, is about managing and setting expectations for yourself and for others, right? Because we talked about earlier about you might not be comfortable disclosing your financial situation. Maybe it's been a tough year for you, and you don't want to say, listen, I can't afford that $100 gift, right? That's not a comfortable place for you to be. So how can you manage expectations and stay comfortable? What do you have to add to that, Laura?
I would say that, going inside and just saying, okay, what works for me? And perhaps, you suggest a different way of doing this is that an alternative instead of exchanging gifts. But I would say the key is, if you're going to change up things, to notify people far enough in advance and to be prepared for a little bit of backlash, because no matter what you do in life, nobody's going to be absolutely happy with your decisions, but it's being true to yourself, which, like you said, you're going to cover that more. And expectations also for what you can't control other people, but you can control how you respond to other people. So the expectations for that, and like I said, communicating clearly to others. Like if you normally gave people 5 gifts and you're giving them 1, you need to talk about it.
Right. Or else they'll make it mean that you don't love them as much. Right. Or they'll make it mean that, oh, you're in real financial straits, So talking about communication, yeah, we'll be taking people through lots of strategies like this during that free online workshop. I know another expectation place is how long are we staying at this party? So I'm like the long goodbyer. Like, my whole family is like that. We start to say goodbye and we get in a whole new topic of conversation. 45 minutes later, we're still standing there, right? My significant other is like the let's sneak out the back door kind of guy. Like, we don't need to, we just talked to everybody for 2 hours. Why do we need to spend 45 minutes saying goodbye? So we have different ways of leaving a party, right? So we need to talk about it ahead of time. How long should we really stay at this? So that we're both happy, or should we just take separate cars? I know another couple, that's how they solve it all. One's a long goodbye, the other one says, I'll just take my own car, I'll leave when I want. And because they do this all the time, that is now the new expectation. Oh, they come in two cars and they each stay as long as they're comfortable, because then they don't have to argue about it. So there's so many different strategies that we can use. And I have worked also with my clients. I'm a raging extrovert, obviously, but I have many clients who are introverted. Introverts it doesn't mean they're not social. It means that they need to recharge their battery in private, where my battery recharges when I'm around a group. So it's really how you recharge. That's the extrovert versus introvert. And so if they're in a big giant party and all their energy is being like expended, they need to go in a very quiet space and be all alone just to recharge. I've had multiple clients who do this, and then people think, oh, is there something wrong? You're in a room all by yourself, So setting expectations with the family that, listen, if you see me sitting alone, that's just because, I just need I'm an introvert. That's just how I recharge. So it's not, don't take it personally, right? So there's ways to set expectations even when you're places. So which is a part of actually what we're going to talk about in our part 4, but it's really a part about giving yourself what you need. So there's lots of strategies that we're going to share in that workshop about setting expectations for dance recitals and being in people's houses, and even bringing a hostess gift. There's so many things, and we'll talk about all of that. Let's move on to number 3, reducing stress by better managing your money. I'm going to let you start with that, Laura. That's your specialty.
That is huge. There's so much, there's emotions behind that. Like, you may feel people that are divorced and don't have custody of their child may feel that they're making up for it with gifts, or somebody that, again, didn't grow up with much or grew up with a real lot. They want to maintain the same status quo or improve the situation. However, their finances might not be in alignment with that. And so there's so many things that are coming at you. Like, again, the expectation to tip people, the mail person, all different people. And you don't necessarily go into the holidays thinking of all these things. And then they come up and it's more and more money. And right. You may have been that person that throughout the whole year bought gifts, and all of a sudden there's these fabulous sales before Christmas you cannot miss out on. Or you may be the person that forgot that you bought all those gifts during the year or can't locate them. And so you're buying even more. So there's a lot of mindless spending going on, and a lot of it is for emotional reasons.
Yes, exactly. So during this workshop, Laura is going to be helping with budgeting. And as a matter of fact, she has a free gift for us about budgeting that we'll talk about in just a minute. And so we want to be able to budget, but not feel constrained. And so it's our mindset around it as well. And if we know that budgeting doesn't have to be hard, it's going to relieve stress and make the holidays even more enjoyable, then it's easier for us to do. And I'm going to work us through more of the emotional side of it. So that'll be a beautiful thing that we'll talk about as well. But better managing our money, because stress buying happens throughout the holidays as well, because we're talking about holiday stress, right? So when we go get ourselves that $6 coffee, is because we're running around shopping and we're exhausted. We're like, I just need a $6 coffee that has 45 grams of sugar in it, just to keep me going, right? That is a stress spend. That is not a happy spend. We want our spends to be feel good spends. And if we're feeling bad and we're spending because we're feeling bad, we're spending because we're feeling, like we're going to be adjudged, whatever. Those are all very stressful spends. So we're going to talk about that as well, the emotional side of it. And then finally in this workshop, and a few strategies today that we can share with you is about reducing stress by honoring yourself and your personal needs, but while tending to all that you choose to attend to. Notice I use the word choose. We're talking about honoring yourself. Now, self-care, buzzword, people talk about it all the time. It's a great thing in theory. People are not very good at doing this because we don't truly believe that we deserve it. It's really a matter of worth, of worthiness, how worthy we feel. That's something I work with my clients constantly, all the time, because until you know your worth, you cannot give your gifts to the world. You cannot make that splash. You cannot ripple positively throughout your family, your community, and the world, because things ripple, right? So honoring ourselves is where it all starts. So our personal needs need to be first and foremost in our minds, and then we need to recognize that we have choice into what we say yes and no to. And once we know our worth, which is the biggest place, and this is where it starts 100% of the time, then we feel like we can exercise that choice of yes, I choose to, or I choose not to, because we know we're honoring ourselves. And we can set boundaries. And boundaries don't have to be like talk to the hand, I'm not coming over, they don't have to be those kind of boundaries. These are like loving boundaries. We can create loving boundaries. We can have really good conversations. So we're going to share some strategies about how to honor yourself. Some more strategies, go deeper into these. So you can honor your personal needs and then still be able to do things, because there are more things to do. And that's a truth. So it's not about just saying no to everybody and hunkering down and being all by yourself, like even as much as you might want to do that. It's not about that. If you can honor yourself in the ways that you need to, then you feel less stressed and you'll be more able to do all these other things that you choose to do. Laura, how can you add to that?
Well, as you were speaking, I was just thinking about how many people wish they could just like go on a cruise for Christmas and get away from it all, come back, have it be done and over with. They don't have to deal with the relative they don't want to see or whatever. So taking care of yourself is very hard in the sense that particularly as women, we're taught in general, this is a generalization, to care for others, and caring for yourself is being selfish, when of course that's not true. And I think taking the time to do the things that make you feel grounded and make you feel calm are so important. The self-care is priceless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so those are just a few quick strategies, but like I mentioned earlier, we are going to be holding a free online workshop on October 18th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. It will be called How to Develop Holiday Resiliency, so that you can enjoy the holidays, making them your version of what you want them to be. Because we're going to help you to learn how to take control over the things that you didn't even think you could have control over. But the best part is that strategies that we're going to teach you and take you through are used. These are strategies that can be used throughout the entire year, because the holidays are not the only stressful time of year. And so when you use these strategies, you can take them with you and use them throughout the entire year, all the time. Make them your own to make life less stressful and more enjoyable. And to go to get into our free online workshop, it's free. You just got to sign up at bit.ly/develop holiday resiliency. So that's how you can get to it. All right, well, that is our show. Laura Lonie, thank you so much for being on Conversations Worth Your While. I know that you also have a free gift, something to have to do with budgeting with joy. Sounds really great. Can you share a little bit more about that and how to get it?
Yes, it's called How to Budget with Joy. And people will say, what the heck is that? I myself prefer the word spending plan over budgeting, but people relate to budgeting. So by that, it's precisely what you were just talking about with choices. If you think of it this way, you have X amount of money. And of course, we have to pay necessities. Everybody has to pay for necessities to live. But we do have a great deal of discretionary funds in the sense that you can choose whether to shop at this grocery store or that grocery store. So by choosing to budget with joy, you set what are the things, the priorities that are really important to you. And there's some exercises in there to go through and, answer. And then there's also some tips on some financial things you can do to get started, and how lucky we are to be able to choose. But as you said, you hit the nail right on the head. People don't realize they have a choice. If you've been mindlessly handling your money a certain way, you don't really realize, hey, there are other ways of doing it. And it opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Beautiful. Well, I will put the link to that resource into the show notes so that listeners and watchers can go and get that resource, the free Budget with Joy resource from Laura Lonie. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so once again, I am Linda Bucher, a speaker and a master certified life coach, and I have a question for you, dear listener. Do you feel stuck, unfulfilled, or out of alignment in your life or career? Do you feel less than? Well, I can help you discover that you are the one you've been waiting for. Let's talk about it. Let's get you back into alignment. Let's get you to know your worth. Schedule a free 20-minute clarity session with me at https://makeasplash.youcanbook.me. That is our show. Please come back next week for another topic, you lifelong learners. These are topics that help you grow so that you can make a splash that ripples positively in the world. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to my podcasts. And don't forget to click the little bell, the little thing that will remind you each time I release a new episode. I'd like to thank Laura Lonie, CPA and financial coach, for being here. Laura, thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank you, devoted listener, for sharing your time with us today. This is Linda Bucher signing off. And until next time, make sure that you've made this conversation worth your while by fueling the spark that it ignited.